And joining me now is the Minister from Saudi Arabia, His Excellency Khalid Al Falih. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, how important is this dialogue of the IEF, the IEA and OPEC to really look at the outlooks and compare them?
Well, it's quite important and quite strategic. Of course, the IEF has become one of the most active organization and convening organizations, countries, as well as influential thought leaders around the world in debates between consumers and producers, trying to come to an understanding of how the global energy scene is unfolding and where future policies and investments and technologies and innovation are leading the world to. And we know the intricate connection between energy and human and economic development. You can't separate those issues. The IEF was created for this purpose. It's serving its mission. And so one of the most important events in its annual calendar, which takes place all over the world, is this symposium that takes place at its headquarters here in Riyadh, where they bring the three key organizations of IEF, IEA, and OPEC, but also, as we saw today, really a select group of influential thought leaders and think tanks to discuss the divergent views on predictions of where oil and energy broadly, supply and demand, are going, and their individual contributions of individual components. So it is indeed very important. It gets stronger year on year. This is my third year where I come and participate and meet, and I will see many of the participants throughout today and tonight. So I am extremely pleased. I congratulate the Secretariat, Dr. Sun in particular, and his team, but I also congratulate the member countries as well as the participating organizations for staying the course and keeping this annual dialogue on track.
How healthy would you say the market is at the moment when you look at the state of the oil market?
Well, I think we experienced a major turbulence in the fourth quarter. Of course, we feel it the most in oil markets, but if you step back and look at it from a high elevation, many other markets experience similar turbulences. You see it in the capital and stock markets around the world. You see it about uncertainty. Developing countries had major shocks in the second half of 2018 with their currencies under pressure. We had great uncertainty, which is being lifted, we believe, in terms of trade friction between the world's largest trading partners, the US and China. And of course, we had the uncertainty about US sanctions on Iran and its impact on predictions of oil supply. All of this factors sort of colluded together to create the conditions that brought great uncertainty and bearishness in the oil markets. Unfortunately, it wasn't only the price. I think producers can withstand price shocks. What we cannot withstand is investment shocks, and we saw cutting down of capital spending, and while we were hoping that a lot of capital would go in 2019 on long cycle projects that will assure us of supply-demand balance throughout the next decade, because that's how long we think. We think in terms of decades and not days. The retraction of capital and the bearishness by investors was my biggest concern a few months ago. So we took the decision we did in December. I know it's not popular with everybody, but we believe it's the right thing. We're on course in our implementation, and we think the market is responding gradually but surely. And 2019 is long enough for us to correct the imbalance that took place in the latter part of 2018. So we just need to give it time, and we will see demand picking up nicely from the second quarter onwards. we will see better compliance and conformity from the member countries. And inventories will respond. Inventories will respond in due course. And I think the markets will be assured that we're committed to balance the markets as we've always said.
And Your Excellency, President Trump has been very critical of OPEC. He said this week that OPEC needs to take it easy. What's your view, and do you have a response for the President?
Well, we are taking it easy. The 25 countries are taking a very slow and measured approach. Just as the second half last year proved, we are interested in market stability first and foremost, and we increased production significantly ahead of a potential decline in supply which didn't materialize, and as a result inventories ballooned quickly, and therefore we corrected course in a gradual and measured way to bring inventories to a reasonable level. We know that the tanks in the US in particular are brimming with extra supplies. US production has peaked and continued to increase, and we're seeing an inventory overhang that could be destructive to the interest of consumers and producers alike. So our focus on fundamentals and bringing supply and demand in balance and bringing inventories down to what we consider a normal level is unshaken. We're going to just continue driving along that policy line that we've adopted for a long time and has been good for the global energy industry, oil in particular, oil producers around the world, including those in the US, which has created within the US the largest producer country, which we welcome and celebrate together with our US partners. And therefore we listen to the Honorable President and hear his concern about consumers and assure everybody, whether it's him or developing country leaders, that we are as focused on the interests of the global economy and consumers around the world as we are focused on the interests of producers. I just came from Asia. We were in India, China, Pakistan, and listened to those consumers as well. And we listened to them also 3 years ago when the oil industry was on the rocks and oil was at very low prices. And as consumers, they were very concerned back then, as they were concerned when oil was 150. So we're driving for moderation, and I assure all of our stakeholders, all of our partners around the world, that we remain prudent, we remain pragmatic, we remain focused on fundamentals, and our number one priority is the global economy, not to cause any slowdown to the global economy.
Now, when we look at the OPEC, non-OPEC cooperation, has this delivered on its promise, and are you happy that this will continue? Do you want this to continue longer?
You know, perfection is the enemy of the good. And if you ask me, is it a perfect world, I'll tell you not. And if we want either perfection or nothing, we should stop from cooperating and leave the market to its own devices. But we know that will be destructive. We know that is going to create enormous volatility that we've never seen, but that can be simulated, modeled, and predicted. And we know it is going to be very, very costly to the global economy not to have a group of producers who are driven by objectives that are good for all, good for the global economy and good for consumers and producers. And that's who we are, the OPEC Plus, and that's what we try to do. And our actions have been helpful to producers outside the OPEC Plus, but I say it for maybe the 10th time today, it's been also good for consumers. It's the next best thing to perfection. 25 countries producing about 52 million barrels that have committed to shave something between 2 to 3% of their total production over a reasonably short period of time to bring inventories down to a reasonable level. Not very low, but not allow it to continue to balloon, and more importantly, not to create so bad a situation for investors that capital is withdrawn and setting us for a sharp and destructive price spike that would otherwise take place in a few years and would certainly sow the seeds for a major global recession. This is something that we don't want to see happen.